Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to another episode of Sunday Morning Transplant Coffee Talk. I am your host, Steve Belcher. Thank you for joining us. This morning, we have a wonderful guest from Lusby, Maryland. Here to tell us her story is Deahl.
Hi
Hey, Jill,
guys.
how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. What's the weather like down in Lusby? Even though we're in the same state, the weather often differs from place to place.
Yep. It's a little bit chilly here, but not too bad.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So Jill, I noticed when I first noticed your post, I see on each post that you post, you count down the days.
Yeah. So when I first started on dialysis about 6 months ago, my way of dealing with it was just to kind of put it out there on Facebook and to have a daily support system of tracking how many days. Because at first I was told I was only going to be on dialysis for maybe a month or two. And then it's progressively just stayed on dialysis.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's crazy. Now, how did you said when you came back on dialysis, how did your journey with kidney disease originally start?
I was diagnosed in high school, my senior year of high school in 94, 95, 1994, 94, 95, with reflux of the kidneys. And I was told at that time, so that was like 20 some years ago, I was told that it was a kid's disease. So nobody really knew much about it. And they slowly, over the years, discovered more about the disease and said it was hereditary, but it was nowhere in my family. So I fought through college. I got sick with urinary tract infections. My kidneys just completely shut down on me, and I had to have a couple different surgeries to replace the ureter. And then they removed my right kidney in 2000. Then I had my older sister give me a living donation in 2004.
Wow. Now, who was your donor?
My older sister.
Your older sister. That's
Mhm.
wonderful. Great. And how long uh did her kidney last?
14 years.
14 years.
14 years. Yeah. So, I mean, it wasn't a perfect match by any means. It was just a blood match, more so. The markers were not all there for the donation, but they went ahead and did it because I needed it at the time. They were giving me about 5 to 10 years. So the 14 years definitely outlasted that portion.
Hmm. Hmm. So you had shared with me that you were in a motor vehicle accident and that
Yes.
the kidney had failed after that. Well, let me ask you this. Up until the motor vehicle accident, were you having any symptoms of rejection or early rejection?
No, no signs of rejection whatsoever. I went to see the doctor every 6 months for my checkups to make sure my anti-rejection meds were good, my immunosuppressant meds were good, everything, all my labs looked good. So up until the accident last February, everything was stable. I was still right around 20 to 25% kidney function. So
Hmm.
they kept getting me prepared to say down the road you'll have to go maybe on dialysis, but we want to get you another living donor. So I started looking for living donors at that point. The car accident just took all that away, and I was immediately put on dialysis at last July.
Wow. Wow. Now, before getting the transplant, did you start dialysis?
No, so this is my first round of dialysis.
Hmm. Um, how have you taken that so far? Far
It's
as
been it's been rough, but I'm finally to the point at the 6 month level right now that I'm able to tolerate it and I'm able to have energy after I go to dialysis. I still feel a little bit tired, but not to the extreme. I was sleeping the rest of the day when I would have my treatments.
hmm. And so now you're not sleeping the rest of the day.
No, now I have more energy.
How did you figure that out? I mean, what was the changing point?
I think for me, it was making sure that I was my own advocate because the doctor was not listening to me. I was having an allergic reaction to the dialyzer, and then I was also having an allergic reaction to the heparin. And it took the doctors probably, I would say, about a month to a month and a half to actually listen to me and take what I was saying to be true.
Now, for warriors who may be watching, you mentioned that you had allergic reaction to the dialyzer and heparin. Could
Yes.
you could you give us some of the symptoms of the reaction far as from the dialyzer that you were getting? So if someone else has these same symptoms that they may could investigate it to see if it's the dialyzer?
Sure. For me, it was having tingliness and numbness in my lips and then also in my hands and my legs. And then also, I was getting intense headaches. And the headaches they kept saying were from my blood pressure, but I was put on blood pressure medicine and the headaches were still not going away.
Yeah, you're absolutely dead on with that. That is those symptoms do mimic a dialyzer reaction. And I'm glad that you were fortunate enough to notice that and say something. But just think of the many other people who may be experiencing that and just think it may be part of the dialysis experience and not a
Right.
reaction.
Right. And the tingliness and the numbness was something that I advocated from the get go when I was in the hospital and they first put me on um, dialysis. And they were kept looking at me. They're like, "Oh, you had a stroke." I'm like, "No, I didn't have a stroke. This is from the dialyzer." And it just they wouldn't listen to me.
Yeah, again, you're absolutely right because when I think of that, a lot of times when warriors experience those symptoms, the doctor may say, okay, rinse the dialyzer with 2 bags of saline.
Right.
Did they try that with you?
They tried that with me, and it worked on occasion. Um, but I still knew it was the dialyzer, and there were times that the headaches would not go away. The tingliness would go away, but the headaches wouldn't go away. So
Hmm.
I just kept advocating, kept telling the doctor, "No, it's the dialyzer."
Yeah, yeah, and the thing about it, people don't realize that these dialyzers have substances inside of it from the manufacturer that has to be rinsed out. And
Mm,
some of this stuff can cause allergic reaction, and people don't really realize that. So
right.
what kind of reaction were you getting from the heparin? Because we know warriors have some warriors use heparin, some don't. And let me
Right.
just say this: at one time there was a distinguished, they had beef and pork heparin.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah.
So my hair, as you can see, is really short now. I used to have long hair. And then before I went into dialysis, I got a cut maybe up to my shoulders. And I noticed being on the heparin, it was making my hair fall out. And it wasn't just a normal daily fallout, it was clumps. The way I describe it to people is that I look like a chemo patient because my hair
Wow.
was falling out that bad. And then
Mhm.
I kept telling the doctor, and he's like, "Well, we can try and see if it's the heparin." So it took maybe 2 weeks after they stopped the heparin that the hair was fine again.
Hmm. Hmm. And see, a lot of people don't know that a lot of patients, you have control over your treatment. I mean,
Right,
even though you got to consult with the nephrologist because he has to make the decision to change it. But if they came with heparin, you can say no, don't give it to me, and refuse it. I mean, not saying that you didn't do that, but I'm just saying
right.
people in general can do that. If you can refuse something, and that's that. My partner, she's on the feed, Tamika Moore. She wanted to know when you were having those the dialyzer reactions, what were the staff doing at that time when you were experiencing those symptoms?
They were just watching me. They weren't really doing anything. They were just taking notes to it. Um, they would come over at the end of the treatment and then type it into the machine to say she still has a headache, she still has the tinglingness. And the tingliness would disappear maybe 2 to 3 hours after my treatment. So I would already be back home. And then also the headaches, they would not disappear till the next day.
Even with Tylenol?
Even with Tylenol, I would actually have to sleep the rest of the day to make it to feel better.
Wow.
They were that intense.
And, you know, Jill, I've seen many people, you know, suffer with headaches. At your unit, have you heard of any other patient experiencing headaches as well?
No, and that was the crazy thing. Nobody, because I talked to several of the patients in regards to the tingliness and the headaches, and nobody had it. And I know I'm the type of person that I get the reactions that maybe the 1% typically get. That's
Mm-hmm.
just me. That's just how my body reacts. And because I know that, I have a tendency to look out for those symptoms.
Mm-hmm. Now, when with the 14 years that you had the transplant, did you have any problems during that 14 years with the kidney? I know you said that it was a blood match, but it totally wasn't crossed.
Right.
But did you have any problems or have to be hospitalized during that 14 years due
The
to
only
that?
the only thing I had was the urinary tract infections. They were still pretty heavy, and nobody could explain why I kept getting them. And I would get one maybe every 4 months at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And at one point, um, I was on medication for them, and they just rotated. So 1 week I would be on Cipro, the next week I would be on amoxicillin, and they would
Mm.
rotate them for a while just to see if that would help me from not getting the urinary tract infections.
Right, right.
But that was the only thing I experienced during the 14 years.
Wow. Now, before you got on dialysis and this whole situation with kidney disease, I know you said you were young when this happened, but
Mm-hmm.
have you ever heard of kidney disease or knew anything about it before it came into your life?
Nope, I knew nothing about it, and I actually grew up in West Virginia, so we didn't have a lot of good doctors in the area either. So nobody knew anything about it. It wasn't until I moved to Maryland in 2001 that I saw doctors that actually knew what was going on with my body.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. Now you said this started in high school?
Yes, started back in 94, 95.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Did that raise any challenges for you as a adolescent in dealing with this? And if it did, how did you get through those days?
It affected because I was planning on going into the Air Force, and
Mm.
I had an Air Force ROTC scholarship going into college, so that would have paid for my entire college.
Wow.
Um, so I was in ROTC for 2 years before they actually went and said you're medically disqualified. Thankfully, that I didn't have to pay anything back to them, but it was definitely a challenge getting through college. I had a certain pathway that I wanted to go, and I had to figure out, well, now that I don't have the scholarships, how do I pay for the rest of my college?
Wow. Mm, mm,
So
mm.
I think that was my only challenge.
Hmm. What about with friendships?
Uh, Not too much. I had a few friends in high school going into college. I at the time I kept my disease to myself. There weren't many people that knew what I was going through, and I've learned this time around, with especially going through dialysis, that the closest people to me are the ones that have stuck to me.
Wow. We had someone else on our show that started treatment early in life and, you know, did the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
like kept it to themselves.
Yep.
Um, did you find that that was more comforting to you to do that? Did you think that you would probably be labeled or stigmatized if you kind of let people know that you were dealing with this?
Well, I kind of was. I was kind of discriminated against in certain jobs. And when they would find out that I had a transplant or that I was going to the doctor on a regular occasion, they would not promote me. They would not um, make plans for my future and say, okay, this is the career path that we need to get you on to get you to a higher job. So I had to keep it to myself. Otherwise, I was going to be discriminated against. And then every time I would fight back about that, against that discrimination, I would be called into an HR office and be let go. So
Mm.
it got to a point that, nope, I didn't say a word unless I absolutely had to.
Wow. And now, if this is happening to you, I'm sure this is happening across the United States, warriors dealing with this type of situation
Oh,
uh,
yeah.
when it comes to even being on dialysis or transplant, because I'm sure that it does interrupt certain days that one may have to go to work, whether it's hemo or having a transplant, with appointments and um, other things that you may have to do surrounding that.
Right.
Um, have you heard of this happening with anyone else, or do you know anyone else who had issues with their work, like from where you work at? I'm
I've
sorry, from where you received your treatment.
not from where I received my treatment, but I have had friends that have had other medical conditions. I had a friend that had lupus, and she dealt with a lot of discrimination as well. And then I had another friend that has MS, and she goes through it on a daily basis.
Wow.
Yeah. So it is, the discrimination against medical illnesses is out there.
Hmm. Now, when you're after that accident happened and the kidney stopped working, did that affect your sister mentally? You know?
It did. She was actually on vacation. I called her up when I went to the hospital in July, and she was on vacation, and she finished up her vacation and immediately came to the hospital. She took care of me for about a week and a half, from the transition from the hospital back to here at my home, because I wasn't able to work. I didn't know how I was going to get transported around. My life was in complete shambles.
Hmm.
So she was there, thankfully, to help me get through everything. And then her mental state was, oh my gosh, my kidney failed you. Like, it's my fault.
Mm.
I gave this to you, yet it's failed. And I had to remind her that it wasn't her fault, that she was doing everything she could for me. She gave me the best thing in the world, another chance at life, and it's time for another one at this point.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. I, that's great that it lasted 14 years. When I just, you just saying this, it made me go back to a guest we had named Tamika Smallwood, and her cousin donated a kidney for her back some time ago, years ago, and she didn't get an opportunity to enjoy the kidney because it failed maybe a week to 2 weeks after
Yeah.
she received it.
Right.
Yeah. So, how's your sister doing now?
She's good. She understands what I'm going through right now, and that guilt has gone away. And she's just helping me focus on the future and focus on hopefully getting one of my younger sisters to be able to be a living donor.
Oh, great. Wonderful. Also, I noticed some of your posts that you post each day. I guess you're at dialysis when you're posting some of your posts. How do you, and they're mainly positive, how do you maintain a positive attitude throughout all this?
Well, my a lot of it has been my faith. I'm not a truly religious person, but I do believe in God and I do believe in prayer, and staying positive helps. It gets me through everything, and knowing that this happened for a reason. I may not know the reason right now, but it's happened for a reason. And I feel like it's put me on the right path in life.
Mm,
My career has been, well, it was at a standstill, and I had to switch jobs, and I wasn't sure about the job, and then all of this happened, and now I'm like, okay, this is meant to be.
hmm hmm So do you think this disease, in spite of the challenges that it may have, made you a better person, or gave you an opportunity to look at yourself and see what your future holds? Because you had mentioned that
Mm-hmm.
you had the Air Force planned out
Yep.
and several jobs, but now you found what you really like. Do you think this is all part of your journey while you're here?
I think so. It's led me to the right pathway. Um, I think there's a saying that says it's not the end, it's the journey. And my journey has been ups and downs, mountains, valleys, but through it all, I've kept my faith, I've kept my close friends, I've kept my family, and I know where I ultimately want to be career wise. It's just getting there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So are you currently on the transplant list?
I am on the list, but I have a couple more things to finish up. So I have to finish up my stress test and then my yearly exam.
So even though you're on the list and you haven't finished those tests, if a kidney came in, they couldn't call you.
Right. They wouldn't be able to call me yet.
Mm. Now, have you made appointments to finish up those other items, or is some
Yes.
steps? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
those should be done in the next 2 months.
Great. What hospital are you registered at?
University of Maryland Medical Center.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's the only place?
That's the only place. So I'm funny with doctors, and
Sure.
so I like a certain doctor, and I've stuck with University of Maryland just because they were able to tell me, oh, it was reflux back when I was in college, because nobody could give a name to it. They're like, oh, your kidney's failing, but why is it failing? And that was something that the doctors at University of Maryland were only able to determine. So I've just trusted them, stuck with them.
Have you ever been to John Hopkins? Because a lot of people talk about John Hopkins. I don't like the hospital myself, but
I've never been there. No.
mm-hmm. Wow. So how has the adjustment been with hemodialysis, going in center and being with other people who is dealing with this disease just like you? How has that been?
It's been interesting. At first, it was kind of intimidating because I was the youngest person there.
Really?
Yes. I did not see anybody my age. Everybody was in their 60s and older. And I go early in the morning. So I go every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday at 7 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was in the hospital, I was told, well, you'll probably see people your age. Yet at my center, I don't. So that was
Well,
kind of that was kind of interesting.
right. Now I could halfway kind of explain that a little. Um, each place is different, but normally at most of the units, Monday, Wednesday, Friday are prime shifts where people work, go to school. I mean, they're really prime shifts. So those days, mostly people who are working are active. They try to put them on those days. And then on the Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, you see mostly your elderly patients on those days.
Mm,
I don't know what it is. Places I've been, that's what I've seen. Now, all places are not like that, but
right.
normally what I see TTS, because nobody wants to run on Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday because of that Saturday messes up their weekend.
And see, I was kind of the opposite of I don't necessarily care about my weekends because I've always had to work weekends. So I just wanted an early morning shift. And I was at the time I was trying to go back to work. So my Mondays was always my training day. So Mondays were out. So I ended up having to do Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, I know exactly what part of Maryland you live in because I drive down that through that way when I'm going to Virginia, somewhere like
Yep.
that, taking 301. But what I wanted to ask you, at your facility, are there more whites or blacks that's on dialysis?
There's more blacks. And it's interesting that you would bring that up because I thought the same thing when I initially went. The area is right beside a Navy base, and we have a very diverse community. However, there are more whites in the area.
Mm-hmm.
So that I did find interesting when I started going to the center.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and again, this is not a race thing, black, white, whatever. It's just what we try to point out that it affects, blacks more than it does any other race, but it does affect other races as
Mm-hmm.
well. And so that's why I said I know where your area is. It's a diverse community, but it's normally more whites than blacks in that area.
Right.
And I'm just wondering, I mean, it kind of mimics the statistics that blacks represent 13% of the total U.S.
Right.
population, but account for more than 32% of people on dialysis. And the statistics mimics um, the clinical reality of it.
Oh yeah.
Even at my center, well, it's not my center anymore. I don't work there, but even at the clinic, Jill, that I was working at in Baltimore at Union Memorial Hospital, it's a 28 chair station, and normally on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we had one white lady who came in the morning, and the rest were black. So this is a devastating disease, but nevertheless, it affects anybody across the board. You could be
Oh yeah.
poor, you could be rich. I
Yep.
mean, black, white, Chinese, Pacific Islander, it doesn't matter. It's just we have to get this information out there. So,
Right.
wow. How many facilities are in your area?
There are one, two, three. So when you say that, there's a couple of different ways I look at my area. So it's more of a country
Mm-hmm.
area. Within 30 minutes driving wise, there is one, two, three. There's three. And then when you start to expand on that within the county, so I'm in Calvert County, there's only two in Calvert County. St. Mary's, there's only three. And then Charles County, there's a couple as well.
Mm-hmm. And those counties are all kind of interrelated. They kind of near
Correct.
each other. So from
Correct.
you can do like a 25-mile radius or something like that, and those clinics will pop up.
Right. Right. And I actually go across across the bridge into St. Mary's County from Calvert. So I go to one of the facilities in St. Mary's County.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever heard of a clinic called Renal Care Partners?
No, I've never heard of them.
They're in Calvert County off of Route 4.
Prince Frederick area?
Yeah, Prince Frederick.
Okay, so that was the other one. That was the other place I could have went to. You're right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have a warrior that watches named Aaron. She goes there.
Right. Yep.
Wow. Um, how would you say your facility where you're at, because it's in a kind of rural area, Do that clinic experience staff shortages?
They used to. It's only been within the last month and a half that they've become fully staffed, and everything is tight, ship shape away, because they got a new head clinical nurse, and she came from the home hemodialysis part, so she runs everything very efficiently.
Wow. Wow. Now, you mentioned that you're going to be doing the next stage, home hemodialysis.
Right. I was actually looking into the peritoneal, the PD, and decided against it because it's not for my lifestyle. The next stage actually fits my lifestyle a little bit better.
Hmm. Now, when you say fit your lifestyle, because we had guests on here that done PD, even went to work doing
Hmm.
exchanges in the car or wherever they need to do. Um, is it a certain position that you're doing that it wouldn't fall into your lifestyle where home hemo, is over PD?
I think for me, it came down to a question of how often I would actually have to do it. And I don't like that you would have to do it if you did it manually 4 times a day, and you
Okay.
would have to do it 7 days a week.
Mm,
Whereas the next stage, it's only going to be about 4 days a week. So it's very similar to being in the center versus you're just home.
hmm. Now, will you be doing that by yourself or will you have someone to assist you?
I'll be doing it by myself. I will be trained to do everything myself.
Hmm. Hmm. Now, what would happen if something unwanted was to happen? Maybe like if your pressure dropped or um, any contraindications that may occur. Would that?
As far as I know of, they have a nurse that's on call. So they told me that I would be able to call her right away, and she would be able to direct me what to do if I needed to do something with the machine, or if I needed to go to the emergency room, or if she needed to get over here. That would all be available to me.
Hmm. Yeah, and the reason why I'm concerned, and I don't, bring this up to make you concerned or to
Mm-hmm.
change your mind, but when I think of the facility and some warriors who may be dialyzed and they just pass out and they didn't know they passed out, how would that now I can see if you was at home and you had a caregiver with
Right.
you, they could intervene, but how would you be able to intervene or call a nurse if you didn't know if you passed out?
Right. And that was something I asked too. And she said for the first couple of weeks, they actually have the nurse. I don't know if she would out every day be here when I would be doing it just to make sure. But she said they take care of that somehow. Um, and then also she asked, does my blood pressure ever go low while I'm on the machine at the center? I've never experienced low blood pressure except for one time,
Hmm.
and that was when they took too much fluid off of me.
Hmm.
So, I mean, I wouldn't recommend it to someone that has that situation at the clinic. I believe it's going to be more for the patient that has that stable blood pressure.
Are there certain criterias that one has to fall under to be able to do it at home?
They said no. However, for me, I personally would say you have to be stable at the center. So you have to know when too much fluid is coming off. You have to know your own body and know when your blood pressure is going to go low. You have to know how you feel on dialysis. Like all of that comes into account when you're doing it at home.
Hmm. Have you started training yet?
Not yet. I actually have to call tomorrow to schedule to get my fistula put in. So that should be coming in the next couple of weeks. And then they said they'll start training after that.
You still have your catheter?
I still have my chest catheter, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Have they been trying to, if you didn't do, say, home dialysis, have they been trying to persuade you to get it put in your arm?
Yes. So they've been constantly on me, constant pressure of saying, take the chest catheter out, either do the fistula or do the PD, kind of make up your mind. So that's why I started looking at PD in the first place, because I was getting that pressure from the center, from the doctors, from the nurses, from the staff. And when I went to see the PD nurse at the clinic, she told me, she's like, you take your time. This is your decision. This is your body. She's like, don't let anybody pressure you. So I really took that to heart. And that's what made me switch my thinking of doing PD to the next stage.
Mm-hmm. Since that happened to you, and you're, in Lusby, Maryland, small town in
Yeah.
Maryland, do you think that may occur with a lot of other warriors across the United States being
A lot.
pressured to do certain procedures that they may not feel comfortable or they may not understand?
Yes, definitely. And once again, you have to be your own advocate and you have to listen to your gut. So my gut kept telling me that there was something that PD wasn't sitting well with me. It just didn't feel right. And come to find out different things, such as I started back working out and running again. So with PD, if I would do the manual exchanges, I would actually have to have it completely empty, then do my workout, then refill.
Mm,
So it comes into a matter of how I would have to plan out my day. I didn't
mm-hmm,
know that until I went to the clinic to discuss it with the nurse.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, you mentioned that you started working out. Can you talk about that and just kind of explain to other warriors who may be watching that are on dialysis that could exercise, that are not exercising, how beneficial it is of what you're doing?
So what I'm doing is I'm kind of doing just the basics. So some push-ups, some sit-ups, stretching, and then I started walking around my neighborhood, and I wanted to get back into running different laps. It's given me a lot of energy, and at first I was using protein shakes or um, different aminos to get that energy back. And just the stretching, just getting out into the community, getting outside, breathing the air has brought that energy back to me. So it's definitely very beneficial, very helpful.
Wow, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Now, are you nervous about the fistula surgery?
Yes, but I've gotten a lot of um, positive reactions and confirmations on my decision. With the next stage, they do little buttonholes. So when it goes in, it's not going to look all bumpy when it matures. And it's only going to be 3 different places that will be stuck with the needle.
Mm-hmm. Right. And that's why you're probably be the only one to stick it,
Right.
because you had to develop that track
Exactly.
in the
And
buttonhole. Wow,
yeah.
I didn't know they still did buttonholes anymore.
Yeah, I didn't either. And that's what the nurses were telling me. They're like, there will be one specific nurse that will train you. And she's like, you're going to do it yourself. So you'll do everything. She's like, you're not going to have that bumpy look that a lot of patients have. And that's what concerned me because I don't want that.
Hmm. Well, I was talking about that the other Friday. They're called aneurysms for fistulas, and on grafts they call it pseudoaneurysms. And basically, where they come from, Jill, is sticking in the same area
Mhm.
all the time. And a lot of warriors, when they first time they get stuck, and they can rotate their site, but what happens some of the times, the technician will come, or the nurse, and just put the needle anywhere. They don't ask the
Uh,
patient, where you want me to go, or I should go here. They may go where it may be easier for them to get the needle in. And
right,
when you go in the same spot all the time, it kind of wears that area out. It starts getting shiny, and then you have that high velocity of blood that's coming through that access. So if your skin gets weak, where you're constantly cannulating the needle, when that blood is coming through, it's going to kind of stretch the skin and
right.
cause that aneurysm. And that's where that comes in at. And we try to, explain that to people about going to the same spot. But some people, they just don't want to hear it. They want you to stick them right there. Don't go
Yep.
anywhere else, because I mean, and this is rightfully so. With some situations, people experience someone sticking the needle in and missing and digging and
Yes.
poking down.
Twisting it. Yeah.
Have you seen other warriors go through that at your unit?
Oh yeah, and that was exactly why I said from the get go I do not want a fistula because I kept seeing technicians or the nurses kind of twisting, and that always scares me. I mean, needles scare me enough, but when somebody misses or can't find the vein, that's just even worse.
Hmm. Have you been to an appointment yet to see the surgeon? Have they done something called a vein mapping to look at your vein?
They haven't done it yet, so that's something that I have to set up this next week.
Hmm. Now, this is just a suggestion, okay?
Mm-hmm.
When you go, just make sure when they do the vein mapping, and you seem like you're very in tune to what's going on with you and your treatment, but just make sure that, if they do the vein mapping, of course, they're going to want you to have a fistula. If they say your veins are small, please ask them, well, you're going to get the buttonhole anyway, but that may be different. But the reason why I said this, because I've seen many warriors who went to the surgeon and excuse me, and what happened to Jill? We lost her, so hopefully she'll come back. But what I was saying to Jill was, I've seen warriors who got the surgery, went to get the vein mapping done, and then they did the surgery and the access didn't work. Here we go. We got Jill back. Hey, Jill.
Hi, sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay. But what I was just saying was that I've met many people who did the vein mapping and had the surgery, and the access didn't work
Oh,
after the
okay.
surgery because the veins didn't develop, the access didn't develop, and then they had to go in the other arm and try another one. But what I was saying was, if you did the vein mapping, you should have knew that during the vein mapping
Right.
that the veins were small. Why would you go there knowing that they small? Only reason I can think of is that even after the surgery, if the access doesn't work, the surgeon still get paid.
Yes. Yes. So that's something I've noticed too. The medical insurance plays a lot into the surgeries.
Hmm. Absolutely. And even with dialysis, a lot
Yeah.
of people don't know. Let me say this. If you go to dialysis and they start and you have a complication, say with your arm, or anything, any complication, and your blood hits the dialyzer, and they have to discontinue the treatment 5 minutes, 2 minutes, or even a minute after you start that treatment, they still charge you insurance.
True.
So if you didn't get your treatment, if you started treatment and didn't complete the whole 4 hours, 3 hours, or 3.5, and something happened in the beginning, and they tell you to come back tomorrow, and your blood hit the dialyzer, you're going to be charged for that treatment. And then when you come back tomorrow to finish the rest of your treatment, you're going to be charged again.
Wow, that is insane.
And a lot of people don't know that. So um, that's just something good to know, to try to find out if that does happen. If they have to stop your treatment, find out what's going on and why are they stopping the treatment, and see if they can continue, because some places they'll just and this could happen in the evening time. If you're having trouble and it's late in the evening, and it's, they already want to leave, and it's got 3 hours to go, and something happened, they may decide to stop the treatment and tell you to come back tomorrow, and the same thing.
Wow.
So it's crazy. Um, what has been the biggest reward out of all this for you, from receiving the kidney to this point now? What has been the biggest reward?
I think my biggest reward has come from educating others. I My passion is education, and that's where I want to go with this. I want to get more get help people become more aware. And like you said, it doesn't just affect the Black community, it affects everybody across every race, across every um
Spectrum.
yeah, it really does.
Wow. I would like to see, what your education looks like, because you seem very, very in tune to what's going on, especially after only being on dialysis for 6 months, six to
Right.
7 months. I mean, it seemed like you know a lot more than people who may have been on for 5 and 6 years.
My thing is, when it affects me and it affects my body, I tend to research. I tend to get out to talk to doctors. I even at one point, went to ultrasound school to learn the background, to be able to tell the doctors, oh, you're lying to me. I know what
Mm.
it says, so you cannot lie to me. And I've caught doctors on that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, have you caught doctors?
Yeah, I have caught
Wow.
doctors. Yeah.
So, guys, you hear from Jill. She's taking courses and educated herself, and actually caught doctors lying to her on her condition or whatever the question she asked. So you have to be your own best advocate.
Yes.
If Jill is telling you that a doctor sat there, she caught in a lie. So
Yeah.
that's ridiculous.
It's crazy. And I mean, you have to everything about your condition, because you never know. You never know um who's going to lie to you, who's going to sugarcoat it, who's going to not tell you straight from the get-go what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Do you believe a lot of that is happening? Just in the we froze up. So let me see if she comes. Do you believe a lot of that is happening now? Are people being miseducated and misinformed?
I think so, yes. Especially in the centers. I know what the doctors that come around at my center, they used to be on a consistent basis of once a week. Now it's maybe once a month. So when they come around, they still don't spend the time with you. They sit there, they check the machine, they go over your labs, but they don't spend time with you. And that's where you need your doctor.
Absolutely. I even seen in clinics where the nephrologist will come around and the person sleep, and they don't even wake them up. They
Wow.
just write whatever they write
Right.
and keep it moving, and they still
Sure.
get paid for that.
Yep.
Wow, unbelievable. So, what type of education are you're passionate about? Health education or just education in general?
Education in general, and then so I have a mathematical background. I am actually going to finish my grad degree and do a PhD in math. That's where I ultimately want to be. Is I ultimately want to be a college professor. Um,
Wow.
but
Wow.
education in general is just very, very valuable.
Hmm. Do you know any accountant?
You know? So
Wow. Wow. So, what other than school, we're coming down to our time. Time flew so fast because when we first started, I was like, wow, we still got a whole lot of time, but it just flew by so fast. Other than
right.
school, what does the outlook or the future looks for Jill Deahl? What does that look like?
It looks good. I mean, I still try to take it day by day. I don't want to jinx anything. And being on dialysis, I do have to say it's hard to look to the future. It's hard to make plans. Um, but I ultimately want to educate other people. I want to do my career path in math. Um, I just want to live a healthy and happy life.
Hmm. Hmm. Can you, for someone who's watching right now, who, you know, may have just got hit with the news of kidney disease, may be in the age range of 17 to
Mm.
40, just got hit with the news. Can you leave any words of encouragement to these folks who may be watching now that's looking at this as being part of their future?
My biggest thing, especially, I wish someone would have told me, would be it's going to be okay. This is going to be your new normal. And when I heard that said to me 6 months ago, I had no clue what it meant. But to me, my new normal is getting the dialysis treatments, trying to stay healthy, just being positive. And you have to be positive. It's
Hmm.
going to be okay.
Right. Wow. Wow. Is there anybody that you like to send a shout out to while you on?
Oh my goodness. Probably all my friends, all my family, just everybody that's been close to me lately. There's only a few people that have stood by me through all this. You will learn who your true friends are.
Hmm. Oh, one more question I want to ask because this is a big thing, and we just try to get past this. But has this interfered with relationship?
Yeah, it has. It has. Um, it's been a challenge. It's been interesting. Um, Dealing with different types of relationships, dealing with work relationships,
Hmm.
dealing with family. It affects everything. And the people that truly understand and support you are the ones that you have to keep in your life and you have to make time for.
Wow, absolutely, I agree. All right, Jill. Well, I definitely appreciate you taking the time out this morning to come on Sunday morning transplant coffee talk. Like I said, when I first saw your post, and what drew me to you was your positiveness,
Right.
and that's what draws me to all warriors that I would want to interview is just their energy and their way that they're dealing with this challenge in their lives and just keeping it, positive. I mean, I know we have our ups and downs, but for the
Mhm.
most part, just staying in front of this disease and not letting it get the best of you.
Right. Exactly. I think
So,
the other piece of advice would be at first, it looks like every day is going to be a bad day, but there are good days ahead. And trust me, when those good days come, you appreciate them.
Right. I'm sure. I'm sure. I'm sure. Thank you, Jill. I really appreciate you coming on. A lot of the guests, um, if you go back and read the thread, it had a lot of comments, positive comments on this interview, a lot of thank yous to you for sharing your story. So I encourage you to go back and read the comments.
I will, definitely.
Yeah, yeah. Again, Jill, thanks a lot for being on the show,
Thank
and
you for
I'll be
having
in
me.
touch. Oh, anytime, anytime. If you ever want to, come back with some information or anything that you want to get out there as far as education, you're more than welcome to come on and share that.
Sounds great. Thank you.
All right, Jill, we'll be talking with you soon.
Sounds good.
All right, take care. Yes, guys. Yeah, I'd like to thank Jill for coming on. It was a great interview. I'd like to thank our viewers for watching the show and being part of this experience. This Tuesday, I can tell you now, we're going to have on the ultimate renal warrior this Tuesday on Smashing Kidney Disease. He's going to share his experience, that what he's been doing for the last 6-7 months with his rides across California, San Francisco, his workout routine, um, his media stuff. So this Tuesday, Renal Warrior will be on Smashing Kidney Disease from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Until then, thanks for watching. Have a great day. God bless you. Goodbye.